Obviously, the theme of this episode is kind of money in tennis, a player's journey from being a kid with some promise, up through being 17 on the cusp of actually playing or maybe playing in Grand Slam events. And for those very few elite, maybe even winning a Grand Slam at 17 or 18, a la, Hingis, Tracy Austin, Rafa, so on and so forth. And then the journey to some success, tour standard, maybe being a star, maybe being a superstar. What that all looks like, where the payments are coming from. It's easy for any of you listeners to go Google someone's prize money. And they say career earnings, and that is, it's deceiving. That is their career earnings on court. I think what we're going to try to talk about and maybe create a little bit of an open dialogue about, without kind of trying to be precious or taboo about the finances of anything, is what are the other revenue streams and how that kind of affects mid-career, later in your career, post-career, so on and so forth. One of my blind spots, because I wasn't like a child phenom, trying to source money at 10 years old, I was far from someone who was trying to figure out funding for my pro career. I'm pretty sure I wet the bed till I was about 11. So I just wasn't that guy. But we've kind of, Max Eisenberg did an amazing job walking us through kind of what options would be for a phenom who wanted to at least give themselves a chance. It takes money to go to tournaments. It takes money to have coaches. It takes money to travel. It takes money to, not have to leave your family, and maybe they have to move with you. So from this point forward, we bring in John Wertheim. All he does is work, work, work. Hashtag DJ Khaled. Fresh back from Paris. I can see. Looks like you're back in New York City. Where are you, John?
Actually, rare office day back in New York City. Good to see you guys.
Perfect. Okay, so we just had an amazing conversation with Max Eisenbud. We pick it up. Let's say you're 16, 17, maybe deciding to sign with an agent, see what that looks like. I can tell you my story quickly, and then we're off and running. Here, open dialogue. There's no question that's out of bounds from the rest of our team. So I was fine. I was good in juniors. I was good enough to know that I wasn't like, super good. And then all of a sudden at 17, change coaches, win 2 massive junior events, Eddie Herr Orange Bowl. So my world junior ranking goes from like 40, which sounds good, but also means you're probably not making it on tour, to, I want to say I finished that year in the top 3 or 4. Eddie Herr Orange Bowl, seeded 2 at the Australian Open, win the Australian Open. My progression was, in 1999 at the Junior US Open, I think I had like 0 agents watching, right? Because I just wasn't there. I ended up losing to Scott Lipsky, who ended up being a doubles player on tour, but certainly not the type of loss that agents were drooling over. Win Eddie Herr, which is a big event. Win Orange Bowl, which is a bigger event. Generally world championships, people like Federer and yada 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 have all won Orange Bowl. I get to Australia in January of 2000. And every single match I play, and we're talking the beginning of Eddie Herr is the beginning of December, the beginning of the Aussie Open Juniors, second week of Australia, so end of January. So this is all happening within 5 or 6 weeks. Every single agent from any company was there watching every single match, sometimes cheering just to be heard and seen. They're not approaching me directly. There's obviously a ton of inbound, whether it's my coach, parents, people just coming up and introducing themselves. And then all of a sudden, we're at the point where we need to choose representation, of which at that moment, I didn't know too much about. So this process starts early December. I start winning everything. I go down to February. In February, I win the Banana Bowl in Brazil, which is like the equivalent of an Orange Bowl. So I've basically ripped off the 3 biggest junior tournaments in the world within a couple months. And then, so from December to April, I win a bunch of stuff, end up signing with an agent, have a Reebok deal in my hand, my first Reebok deal, with a guaranteed money, incentivized X, Y, and Z. That was signed in April. So in the course of 4 or 5 months, I went from, where are you going to go play number 4 in college? And now you have a Reebok deal, you're a pro, and you're making money. Mike?
How much money were you spending to get to that point?
A lot of
money.
Just
in that period of time, like how aware were you at that age of the actual real cost?
I was aware that there was money being spent. Money of which I have 2 older brothers. My oldest brother, there's no way my parents could have afforded the cost of what I was doing when he was my age. Like, they would not have been able to afford that. My parents, farmers from Wisconsin, my dad, they lived in a trailer together when they first got married. But then by the time I was coming up, they were spending, and I didn't understand the stress points of it because they didn't put that on me, which I'm thankful for. And my dad at that point had been a successful businessman, had worked in, if you heard of Jiffy Lubes, he kind of bought another one, ran them, and at least had business acumen. My current business partner and mentor in our real estate company was involved with my father at that point. So I was incredibly lucky that I had a business mentor for not as far as like he would reach out and coach, but any questions I had along the way, I knew I was probably one phone call away from getting an answer from someone who didn't want or need something from me. And I don't know that that's the case with a ton of people. But to answer your question, Mike, what does a economy class ticket cost to Australia? What does a coach cost? Tens of thousands. I mean, Tariq Benavides was 20 something in the world. I'm guessing we're paying him, tens of thousands of dollars. He was working with other players, so we're not full boating it. But yeah, to travel to Australia, to win that major, to then be recruited, to then, sign the Reebok deal, those were necessary. I don't know that I get that Reebok deal without winning a junior Grand Slam. And also a part that is a huge part of it is being from a country that was extremely thirsty in the kind of vacuum of Pete, Andre, and always being titled to the next Grand Slam champion and the next world number 1. So we're looking at 6 figures plus for sure on a year-to-year basis. What's up, John?
So the agents are all going after you. I actually I have recollections of that. Your name was very buzzy at that 2000 Australian Open Junior. So the way it's explained to me is that usually the agents don't take a cut of prize money. They do take a cut of everything they bring in, sponsorship, apparel, endorsements. It starts at 20%. It usually gets worked down. So let me ask you how, especially given that there was sort of a bidding war situation, how aware were you of how you negotiated that agency fee? Because a lot of times what will happen is you have these agencies just keep undercutting each other and say the other guys will do 15%, we'll do 10%, and we'll give you a wild card into one of our events. Oh, wait, we'll give you... So do you know the terms of your agreement with the agency? I think it was SFX, but whoever you chose, were you aware of the terms and are you sort of comfortable talking about what the terms?
It was the standard deal. So last segment, John, we talked about percentage of prize money. That normally is part of the payback situation when you get signed at 13, 14, 15 years old. There's basically the loan plus interest. The interest is normally taken out of current and future prize money until it's paid off and then some. Max told us of some absolute nightmare deals and having to unwind because a minor signed it, yada, yada, yada. I was aware of big picture items. A couple of things that I didn't care about that a lot of other players do. I wasn't going to sign with someone for an unearned wild card. Right. It wasn't part of my process to say, even if I don't earn it, or if I earn it enough, like there's no way I can be number 1 in the world in juniors, have a bit of a track record and then not get a wild card into Miami. Right. Or even if I don't sign with that agency, I thought it was a bad look for the tournament. The terms would have been standard. So the numbers you were talking, at first. So I know my Reebok deal had a guarantee. of X amount a year. And then obviously when I'm 21 or just turned 21 and winning US Open and number one in the world, I'm not playing on the same contract from when I'm 17. It's incentivized. So you negotiate that contract when you're 17 with Reebok, and then there are incentives. If I make top 10, bonus. If I make top 5, bonus. If you win a slam, bonus. If you finish number 1, that's all accounted for. And you're the happiest person in the world if any of those triggers actually click. Now, for me with the agency, I was worried about, I was very, very consumed with, and I don't know if I still agree with this or not. I ended up signing with Ken Meyerson, who became like family to me. He wanted me the most, is what I felt. I felt like he enjoyed my vibe. I felt like he hustled the most. The SFX was a smaller agency, a much smaller agency compared to some of the other ones. I at that point, I didn't want to have to compete with an Agassi in the same, either he was SFX, but he was on like kind of a different planet. I didn't want the same agent. And that was a lot of what the agents would say is like, I'm so-and-so's agent, I must be great. And in my mind, I'm going, if you're so-and-so's agent, then you're busy as shit probably. So I was aware of those things when I was 17, but, my parents did protect me from a lot of it. Like when people would come pitch, I would say hello, 15, 20 minutes of small talk, answer any questions they had for me. And then when it came down to numbers and dealings and negotiating, like that was something that I don't think my parents wanted to burden me with when I was on a roll on the court, when my coaching situation was good. I don't think that I mentally needed to give much time to those other factors involved. What I will tell you is that it was completely different. I signed a deal that I want to say finished at the end of 2003 with SFX. So sign at 17. It comes up again at when I'm number 1 in the world and US Open champion. At that point, I could look at them and say, I don't give a shit what your standard deal is. I don't care, because you can represent 42 players that you hope will be good and or that are 60, 70, 80, 90 in the world from non-major markets. And that doesn't do you the same as what I might bring to the table. One of the mistakes my agency made was allowing my friends to intern. So I knew everything backwards. I knew the numbers. I knew what percentage of their business I was at that given moment. And so I knew I had them by the balls. I beat my agency up. I said, listen, you have first right. I love you guys. You're friends of mine. I trust you. I like you. This is basically, I presented them with an offer of, this is the commission I'm willing to pay on what you bring in. I will say, like a shoe and clothing deal is an expectation for a top player. So I had a different commission set. And I don't know if this is normal. This is just something that kind of I thought of and I thought it was relevant. Shoe and clothing, the things that were like tennis industry specific, were valued less than bringing in an Amex or a, whoever it might be from outside of tennis, right? Not a, I don't swing a credit card. I don't swing a bottle of Powerade, right? Like I don't do those things, but like the racket is a given, the shoes are a given, the clothing is a given. So I valued those differently on a commission base because I felt like one was a lot tougher given the product than the other. So the commissions, I value them differently. And so therefore, but I simply, when the deal was up, I said, listen, here are my terms. You basically you can sign yes, and it's done. I've already signed my piece. You have 3 days. Otherwise this message explodes. And, all the while you kind of knew that they were going to end up signing it. And then from there forward, the Reebok deal, I think I've talked about this on the pod before. If not, number 1 in the world, number 2 in the world. My deals that win in 2003, deals up in like April of 2005. I had a verbal agreement with Reebok in February of 2005. And then I had a meeting with the former chairman, Paul Fireman, in a restaurant in Memphis after a night match. He came down. We basically agreed to terms. And then we couldn't really get a response from them after that. And just for all the things that are going on in the orbit of a given deal, they couldn't tell me that between when they verbally agreed and 3 weeks later that they had started conversations to basically merge with Adidas, and that one of the things was they couldn't bring on new contracts while this was being negotiated. So I'm basically 3 weeks away from my deal being up, 2 in the world, pretty marketable at that moment in time, and not having a deal. And so Ken Meyerson going and negotiating in France with Lacoste, with the elder statesman of Lacoste, while he was on his hospital bed. And so that's how that deal got done. But they're just always moving parts and different kind of macroeconomic factors that can affect a given deal at a given time.